Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Heffmeyer here with Carmen Chestnut and Bree Moore, one of the presenters from the Author Capital Conference. And she is teaching an amazing class called Hack Your Brain for writers with ADHD, which is such an awesome topic. And I'm so glad she's here to talk to us about that. So thanks, Bree, for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we just wanted to start out by having you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do and what you write and all of the things about what makes Bree Moore Bree Moore.
Yeah, so I've been writing fantasy books since I was in fourth grade. I've been published for about 5 years now, and I mainly like to write urban fantasy and paranormal fantasy. Those are my genres, super fun. And then I am a stay-at-home mom. Otherwise, I homeschool my 6 kids, and it's a lot of fun. So I have 2 cats. So if there's any cat lovers out there.
Yes. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. First, Bree, do you want to tell us more about what you are teaching at Author Capital Conference? And how did you discover or fall in love with this topic that you're teaching?
Yeah, so my class is really for writers with ADHD and any other writer who feels like they do things a little bit differently, their brain works a little bit differently, and the typical advice that you hear doesn't seem to fit or work for you. And you're kind of wondering if you're broken or if you're going to be stuck forever. And I am in my class, I'm here to tell you are not broken and you're not going to be stuck forever. And I've got a lot of tips and tricks that I've learned and picked up in my years, my whole life of being a writer with ADHD. And I really fell in love with this topic when I got diagnosed with ADHD last year. So I did not grow up knowing that I had this. I just thought I was kind of a weird person, honestly. I had people always tell me, "You're so weird." And they liked it. It was like on brand for me. They were like, "You're weird, but it's cool because you're also creative and all this." But then I would run into these unique struggles that other writers were like, "Well, it's not like that for me. And I do this, this, this." And I'm like, "But none of those things work for me." So I was like, I need to help other writers like me get things done in their publishing, and reach their publishing dreams. And so that's why I put this class together, because I'm like, I have successfully published so many books. I know that writers with ADHD, we can do this. So I want others out there to know that you can do this.
So you kind of talked about, you were diagnosed and you realized you had this neurodiverse, I don't know, what was the word you would say? I guess just, it's not really a challenge, just, this different thing, this different tool in your box that you had to work with. And I'm sure there are lots of writers out there who have the same neurodiverse tools they get to work with. So what would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions for writers with ADHD that they kind of struggle with right now?
Probably the number one thing I see is that writers with ADHD are struggling with getting projects done. And we start new projects really frequently, and it can be difficult to cope with the various things that come with ADHD and actually get the project to completion. And so that's probably the number one thing I see in writing groups among those with ADHD. They're like, am I ever going to finish this? How am I going to get this done? What can I do to make myself focus? So I've heard it said in my research about ADHD that we put so much emphasis on people with ADHD focusing on things. And really the issue is not whether we can focus or not. It is what we're focusing on, because we just tend to get so excited about so many things. So that's what I'm seeing. We're struggling with that. We're struggling with so many things we want to do. And so we got to learn how to work with that unique way that our brain works and make that work for us, because we totally can. I write quickly, luckily. And so I work with it in one way by working through a lot of projects all at once. And I'm very good at doing that. Whereas other people with ADHD might need different tools, but I cover so many tools in my course because I know ADHD can show up in so many different ways for everyone.
I love that you're already touching on that you have a variety of tools, because ADHD is a big box to be categorized in, right? There's so many different variants of that. And so when you're talking about you using certain tools, is there a tool that you think is really useful when you were talking about them focusing in on the thing, what they're focusing on? What do you think is a tool that can help them find that focus?
Yeah, so one of my absolutely favorite tools to use when I know I need to double down and maybe I've got a deadline I've set for myself on a certain publishing project, is body doubling, because it is a lot easier to focus on one thing when you have somebody either through like a video call or physically in the room with you as this accountability and someone you can check in with, and they can help keep you on track, because your brain is automatically, every time you notice that they're there, you're brought back to this focus on what you need to be doing. And there's also, it creates dopamine to be around somebody who's encouraging you and supporting you. And another way of looking at ADHD is that it's all about creating dopamine, because we tend to have a dopamine deficit where other people's get a surge of dopamine from accomplishing things. And so any way that we can create extra dopamine is going to help our brains and reward our brains for focusing. So I love body doubling. I love having a buddy with me, riding with me, sprinting with me, even just working beside me. Even having my husband in the room can help. So, and he's doing something totally unrelated, but I highly recommend body doubling.
That's a super cool tactic. I really love that.
That is really cool. And I've never thought to do that before, like have someone physically in the room to help keep you accountable. That's such a cool idea, such a cool concept for anyone to use, really. So you kind of touched earlier on how it can be frustrating for writers with ADHD because sometimes they get into this mentality of, can I do it? As opposed to setting a deadline and saying like, when can I do it? So I bet that causes a lot of feelings of like frustration or hopelessness. So how can learning about what you are teaching for Author Capital, how can it help those writers who are struggling with those thoughts and worries?
Yeah, so there's an enormous amount of power in knowledge, and especially in gaining knowledge about yourself and how you work, or don't work on the flip side. And I know for me, initially, I learned about my ADHD while I was researching it for my son, who it seemed really obvious, like, you've definitely got ADHD. And then I learned that it's genetic. And so I started looking at myself and going, oh, like, I do fit a lot of these categories. And once I started to accept that I really resonated with those things and actually got diagnosed, it opened up this whole new world for me of, I'm not just broken, I'm not just weird, but I actually have a condition that I need to work with. So just like somebody who, like, say, is missing a limb would need to make adjustments in their life, and they wouldn't, nobody would tell somebody who's missing a leg, just try harder. Like, that is like completely useless advice. They have to do it differently. They have to. And with ADHD, it's the same way. You have to do it differently, and you have to work with your ability, what abilities you have. So it was totally freeing to open up my mind, like the negative self-talk I was experiencing that was around all these things that I couldn't seem to do right, suddenly went away or reduced significantly, because I could tell myself, it's not me, it's the ADHD. And so I just need to work through this or find a way to work with it. It was really empowering to learn not only that I had ADHD, but then what I could do to work with the ADHD in order to move forward. So whether somebody here who joins this conference and is taking this class suspects they have ADHD, or whether they actually have a diagnosis, I really think it's going to help to narrow down like what tips are going to work for you, what methods are going to work for you, And it's going to bring more positivity into your life to acknowledge that you just do things differently, and that's okay.
Oh, I am so excited just to listen to this. My son also has ADHD. So for me as a parent to come and listen and learn from you so that I can help apply it to, my kid who's also very creative. I'm really excited. But on that vein, I would love to know, what is the breakdown of your course? What are we going to see when we come and learn from you? Can you give us just a short breakdown of the things that you are covering?
So in this class, I tried to pack as much as I could into the time that I had. And I definitely made this just so full of information and advice. So I really wanted to focus, there's that word again, tips for focusing, so that you can absolutely accomplish that dream of publishing your book. Because I've been there. I know what it's like to feel like you just want to reach that point ahead of you. I wanted to publish since I was a preteen. And so I've been chasing that dream for a long time. And when you have so many other things coming at you, it just feels like, I don't know if I'm going to get there. And so we're going to really talk about what can you do to work with the scattered brain that you have to focus on and get to that finish line. And then one of the biggest things we deal with as people with ADHD is I think we get writer's block a lot more than others people, but writer's block isn't what you think it is. And so we're going to talk about the myths of writer's block and what unique way our brains work as people with ADHD that make writing block even worse, and then how to overcome that. So awesome. We have the joy of discovering oh, this isn't just me, it's ADHD, and how can I overcome that? And then we're going to definitely talk about working on multiple projects, because we are kings and queens of having a mountain of stuff to do, because shiny object syndrome. We want to do all the cool things all the time. And when you're a creative person coming up with characters and plots and all these amazing worlds, maybe if you're in fantasy, then you tend to go down plot holes and chase after new characters, and your side characters get all the plot lines and all these things that we end up going after. And I want to talk about how we balance all those projects. And then we're going to talk about meeting deadlines too, because this is something we do struggle with. And if you're in traditional publishing, you're going to be working with people who expect you to meet deadlines. And so how do we take our ADHD brains and fit them into molds of other people's expectations, or even our own expectations? Because I've definitely run into this even as an independently published author, and setting deadlines for myself. So, and then lastly, I wanted to touch on what are all of the publishing options as just a writer. And then as a person with ADHD, how do you fit your own goals for your career into those options, and which one would you want to pursue? So just thought it would be so helpful to lay it all out, because I've done both. I've done some traditional publishing and I've done indie publishing. And I'm like, there are some things to consider uniquely when you have ADHD between each path. So
since realizing that, you have ADHD and that is something that you have to work with to publish your novels, how has your mindset about writing changed, and how have you acquired new skills to help you continue to publish?
Yeah, so when I was considering this question, it was really interesting, because what popped into my mind, and when I looked back at my last year, because really I've only had a year to adjust to the fact that I have ADHD, and everything I've done before then was me scrambling to try to keep up and to apply these methods that I thought I was supposed to do. And so it's really been this past year that I've been moving more authentically with my ADHD energy and just acknowledging it. But I looked at the past year and I realized that I've done a lot of shedding of unnecessary guilt. And that has totally influenced my writing and made it a lot better, because I don't hesitate as much when I'm this plot that I just totally changed in my outline, and I'm weird thing, where did it come from? I am more accepting of those. And then it's really fun. I find that my brain just works that puzzle and fits it all in later. And I don't have to feel it makes sense right now, whereas before I would be constantly berating myself of like, why are you taking up with this random idea? So it's really changed my process of how I look at my first drafts, my initial drafts. And then I realized that it's easier for me to choose what mentors to listen to in the publishing world, because there are so many out there on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook that are like, buy my course, read my book, these methods made me $1 million author. And I can tell easier from the get-go if it's going to fit with how I work and function with ADHD. So I'm better able to be like, okay, I actually don't need your course because it's going to completely derail me and it's absolutely not going to work with the way my mind works. And so I'm seeking out actively those mentors who know what I'm dealing with and who know, because it's different. It is different. There might be some things we can do the same, but it helps to have somebody who in your corner who absolutely understands 100% what struggles you're facing, and then that they've overcome those struggles and still have been successful. So I'm seeking out those people, and I'm not chasing so many like dead ends where I'll get frustrated because all of their success relies on me using a planner consistently or something. So
So it sounds like it's not only helped you learn how to focus, but what to focus on. And that's a really, really valuable skill to have. That's awesome. I love it. Oh, Bree, thank you so much for coming and interviewing with us and for providing us with such an amazing course. We get a little sneak peek and it's just blowing us away, all of the different courses that are coming in, but just how applicable and valuable, like you've done such a great job. So thank you. And we can't wait to share it with everybody. So if you are a writer with ADHD or know of someone with ADHD, it's great to also have compassion for maybe someone in your writers group or your own child or a spouse. So we hope that you come and check out Bree's course at the conference. And Bree, again, thank you so much for coming. It's such a pleasure to have you.
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we'll see you at the conference.